Tell me the beginnings. What got you through photography, creativity, and all these kind of things?
And I started shooting covers of Vogue and GQ and Elle and campaigns for Rolls Royce and Bentley, the beer diamonds and all these different things. And I was making a lot of money and I was buying all the fancy houses and cars and I was friends with all these supermodels and movie stars. And I felt there was this hole inside me that I couldn't fill to make me happy. And my kidneys were failing and they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they said that I was going to have not to the end of the day to live.
What you see around these days with photographers?
I see the biggest mistake people make and so I left all my agents in London and Paris and New York and I told them all I'd leave, and I went out and I started looking for a big piece of property and I bought a big piece of property in Calabasas and I built a big white tent. I can't do this alone. I'm scared of it. I don't know how to use a camera. Now I manage about 150 models, actors.
Wow. Jim Jordan, a trailblazing force in the words of celebrity, fashion photography, talent management, and entrepreneurship. Jim has gone to redefine what it means to be a creative innovator. His photography has graced the covers of Vogue and Harper Bazaars and much more, and he's worked with icons like Leonardo DiCaprio and Zendaya and much, much more. What is the biggest manifestation you did that I would say happened to you?
I just put a company.
Welcome back, Alpha Squad, to another inspiring episode of the Alpha Talks show, the #1 fastest growing show in the region. Today, we're joined by Jim Jordan, our Alpha guest today, a trailblazing force in the words of celebrity, fashion photography, talent management, and entrepreneurship. From humble beginnings as a skater and a surfer in Southern California, Jim has gone to redefine what it means to be a creative innovator. His photography has graced the covers of Vogue and Harper Bazaars and much more, and he's worked with icons like Leonardo DiCaprio and Zendaya and much, much more. As the founder and CEO of White Cross Management, Jim has discovered and developed some of the biggest names in modeling, including Taylor Hill and Jeremy Meeks, and now through his latest venture, White Cross Worldwide, he's pioneering connections between the worlds of fashion, technology, and entertainment, diving into blockchain, AI, NFT, and the metaverse. So please join me in welcoming to the show the Alpha himself, Jim Jordan. Jim, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with me in the show today.
Thank you, Seif.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
Jim,
Seif.
when we start the show, I have a nugget question.
Sure.
When we publish the episode and it goes on all platforms, people will look at the thumbnail, they will look at the graphics, they will look at the title, they will see your name there and they will, oh, that's a very interesting episode. What can Jim promise them today to gain if they gave us their time to watch the episode?
Wow, big question. What they can gain is how to discover and rediscover their creative selves.
Ooh, I love that. I love that, Jim. So let's start. Who's Jim in a nutshell from your perspective?
You're amazing.
Thank you. But from your perspective, not from how do people read on internet, digital, whatever, who you are from your perspective.
I'm somebody that has never looked around to see how other people have done life. And that I've always, moved to the beat of my own drum and the way I saw life to be. And I was curious about life.
Wow. Jim, your journey is, when I did my prep, your journey is literally amazing. Super, I want to say diversified, but complementary at the same time. So I want to go back to the early days.
Okay.
Tell me the beginnings. What got you through photography, creativity, and all these kind of things?
So I grew up in California. I have a brother, 2 sisters. And when I was young, I was able, very young, like 4 or 5 years old, I was very creative and I wanted to remove everything around and just strip out ugliness around me. And I started by climbing trees in my neighborhood, these big, huge trees. And I would go in them and start manicuring them and bonsaiing these bushes. And I just was so high on life, being able to transform things. And so that turned into me cutting all the dog's hair in the neighborhood and just
lovely.
Just trimming bushes, trimming hair, having that feeling of being able to mold things and shape things and see something in the future of what it could be that It wasn't. And those little things that I was doing was it was the best thing that ever happened to me, was able to do that.
And how your career started? Like now, at a young age, you discovered your passion.
Yeah.
In the simple words, like discovered the passion from like, I want to look at things that looks beautiful. I want to make things beautiful. And it touched the creativity part, the innovation part. Then how you linked it to a career?
So I had a friend in junior high school that got scouted as a model, and she was sent off to Paris and to London. And she was really my only friend, and I was really bullied and picked on, and I don't think, my family was very supportive of who I really was as an artist.
Yeah.
And she went off to Paris and Milan, and a few months later I started seeing her on all these magazine covers. And I always thought to myself, who was the man that found her and did all this for her, changed her life?
Wow.
And I was curious about this man, and I found out that his name was John Casablanca. He owned the biggest modeling agency in New York, Paris, London, and Los Angeles. And I said to myself, I want to do that. Instead of trimming trees and cutting hair and transforming dogs,
Sure.
I want to do that on people. And if I have an eye to see the future in things that aren't yet, I'm able to see how somebody could transform and look.
A quick note, before we jump into this episode, I find this incredibly intriguing. On the back end of our YouTube channel, it says around 75% of you who watch this channel frequently over the lifetime of this channel haven't yet hit the subscribe button. I just wanted to ask you for a favor. It helps this channel so much if you choose to just subscribe. It helps us invite guests that give you great value. It helps us scale the production, and as well makes this show bigger and bigger for you. So if I will ask you just one favor, and if you enjoyed the previous episodes and you're currently enjoying this episode, could you please hit the subscribe button? I love your support. It's incredible to see all your comments and engagement, and we are just starting. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much, and I will repay this gesture by making sure that everything we do on this show makes it bigger, and better. I'm committed to do this promise. Do we have a deal? Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to me. Wow. And from here it started.
And from there it started.
So you started as what? Because now everybody knows you wear many hats. Correct? Like from photography, from directing, from talent management, scouting, like a lot of hats.
Yeah.
But it started what?
So I got a business card, and I was skateboarding and hitchhiked to all the schools, and I would ditch school. I was a terrible student. And I started finding models, girls, 14, 15-year-old girls and boys, and I do their hair, cut their hair, and do their makeup and take pictures of them, and then bring them to the modeling agency. Time I was in the 8th grade, I had 21 models signed with the biggest agency in the world. And they were like, we want to give you 10% of every model they do, every job they do. And why are you doing this? And they were curious of why, if I was getting paid for doing that. They were like, you have an amazing eye. And they were like, we want to give you 10% of every model that you find for us. But why are you doing this? Are you getting paid? I'm like, no. And they were like, why are you doing this? And I says, because I'm able to show people how I see them. And I'm able to use a camera to show people how I see life.
Wow. Jim, the question comes here. Like now we live in an era that to scout somebody, I would say a little bit easier than before.
Yeah.
You have all the social media, all the Instagrams, the Facebook. You can see like, oh, okay, I think that person or this lady is good. Back in the days,
no,
it's only a real look.
Yeah.
So you had to go to different places.
Yeah.
So between here and there.
And nobody had cameras. There were no iPhones.
Absolutely.
There were nothing.
But what you found in yourself as a talent or a skill that you developed at that period of time that made you, I saw you can be somebody. What is this? Because like these days, okay, you look at pictures, okay, come for casting. You understand? Like it's I don't want to say simple to simplify the job of people, but back in the days, it was a proper. You need to look at the person, see something in them.
Yeah.
What is this in them?
It's half of a look. It's a half to do with the looks, and it has to do with the energy and the feeling of what's inside these people.
It takes a lot of time, correct?
Yeah, and it takes a lot of coaching and taking the layers off of people of what they've been raised to think about themselves.
Wow. And you're able to see this by a look or by a conversation back
I
in the
was
day?
able to see it first by the look, by knowing what they could look like once they were transformed, or how they would look with how a camera would see them.
Oof.
And then the other part was getting them to believe what I was able to see in them. That's the hardest part of my job, is getting people to see. Like when I found Taylor Hill, she was 14. I met her in a barn, and she couldn't believe what I'd seen for her. I said, you're going to travel all around the world. You're going to go from Paris to London to Miami to New York, and you're going to be on a plane every week going around the world. She's like,
Me?
what are you talking about? Are you talking about me?
Wow.
And I was like, yeah. And 2 years, a year and a half later, she was been to Paris and London and Australia and all around the world, and called me and said, I can't believe like what you saw. I had no idea that was even possible for me. And those were the moments that made me feel like all of this is worth it.
Phew. Jim, that's something super inspiring. But how can you define this even to yourself? Like when you sit, like, okay, let's say like I'm a bodybuilder. I know I'm good at that because I can lift weight, as an example.
Yeah.
But for Jim, like, how do you define this to yourself? I can see through people. I can see the future for them. Like, how do you define this? Does it make you get crazy? Like, oh my God, what the hell?
It makes me crazy. It's a gift that's a blessing and a curse.
If I go and a curse, let me stop here. Why
Yeah.
a curse?
Because I have such an opinion of how things should be and look, and other people sometimes aren't open to it.
Oh, okay. They take
And
it as
so
if it's
they're
an
like,
insult.
no, like, yeah, like what?
Oof.
And it's frustrating because when you see a gifting or something potential in people and they don't see it, and they're like, they push it away.
leave me
That's
alone,
why
kinda.
it's like, damn.
True. Jim, if I go back in the days and you had talents, you see people, then you see how they will look on the camera. But as I understand, you didn't have an education in this part. How did you manage that?
I was just bold. My next door neighbor had a camera. His name was Greg, and we used to hang out together. He's 5 years older than me, and he had a camera on his bookshelf. And back in the day, I started smoking weed, and he grew weed in the backyard. And we used to smoke, and I'd redecorate his whole bookshelf. He had thousands of books, and I'd put them by color and order. And every time I'd go there and smoke with him, I'd redo his whole bookshelf.
And the creativity
Yeah,
hits.
he had a camera sitting on the shelf, and I said to him, hey, I'm going to all the schools, and I got a business card with my name on it, and I'm finding models. Could you take the pictures of these people when I cut their hair and do their makeup? And he thought he was going to find girls through this. So he's like, yeah, I'll shoot
course.
pictures of models. And when the girls came, they were like 14 and 15 with their moms.
Exactly.
And he was like, dude.
Well, what's that? That's not the deal.
No, that's not what I signed up for. So like 3, 4 models, he did it for me. And then he gave me his camera. He's like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm giving you my camera. Take it. I was kicking and screaming and literally crying, saying, don't leave me. I can't do this alone. I'm scared of it. I don't know how to use a camera. I was technically challenged in everything I did. I had no technical skills. And so he forced me and took my camera, and his name was Greg Glassman, and he's a creator of CrossFit. That's why I
you
asked
asked me, yeah.
if you're a
Yeah.
CrossFitter. So long story short, I took the camera, I started shooting girls, finding girls, and I went off and I did that. Like I said, in 8th grade, I had like 27 models signed under contract with Elite, and they were sending them all to Paris and Milan. And they said to me, when you get older, you should do hair and makeup for photographers and magazines and learn photography. And I'm like, I don't want to be a hair and makeup person. I don't want to be a photographer. They're like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I just like showing people how I see them, and cutting someone's hair and doing their makeup and taking pictures and showing them and watching the reaction on their face of how I saw them. Some girls would like, turn around and look in the mirror and start crying, or
Wow.
people I would show their pictures to, and it was just really touching to me.
That's so inspiring. Jim, if there are photographers watching us and they would love to get an advice from you, because like now, I don't want to say life is easy, but in a way easier than before, much easier than before. Cameras are accessible,
Yeah.
technology is everywhere. If they want to be a real photographer, because what hit me directly when you said, I didn't want to be a photographer, I didn't want to do makeup and hair, I just wanted to see the face of the people when they see the transformation.
Yeah.
Man, that is unbelievably inspiring.
That's all I wanted to see.
That's-
I wanted that feeling. I wanted that validation. I wanted people to see that I had something to say. Because when I was obviously young, my whatever, I don't want to say, but my mom did not want me touching hair. She did not want me doing any of that. And so I was on this solo journey. I had no mentors. I had no one to look up to. I was just on this path. Like I just
Alone.
was going for it, even though I was tormented and beaten, and just everything was coming against me. And I just kept pushing forward, and I had all these girls signed off, and I ended up getting taken away by this man, and that's another story. And I was taken away for about a year and a half, for 6 months first.
Ooh.
And then I was, it's a whole nother story,
Yeah.
but we could talk about that one day. And then I ended up coming back. I ended up running away from home and going to Milan and living in a park for 6 months in Italy. I ended up meeting a model agency there 6 months later. I was homeless there. And this man gave me a lucky break. He sent me to a magazine called Grazia.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting my first job, shooting my first cover, doing makeup and hair. I stayed in Italy for 3 years doing makeup and hair. And I was doing covers of Vogue and Elle, and I became a hair and makeup person. I came back to America when I was 19. I had money saved, and I had a portfolio of like 30, 40 magazine covers. And I ended up getting an agent in Los Angeles, and my agent couldn't believe what I had done since I was so young, and 19.
Exactly.
And they're like, this portfolio is unbelievable.
I want to give the audience some advices as they want to start their photography career. What kind of advices, couple of advices for them? What you see around these days with photographers?
I see the biggest mistake people make as trying to be fashion photographers. They don't know how to communicate to people, and they don't know how to connect energy to people. And it's the simplest thing is when you point a camera at someone and you're just taking pictures, but no one's talking. Because I think having an energy connection with your talent is the most important thing, because it's an energy exchange. It sounds weird, but it's you're throwing your vibes to the camera, and the vibe, it's like a mashup of, it's crazy to say it.
So it's not just technical expertise.
No,
it's not-
that's like, I'm not technical at all. I don't really know how to use a camera. Not that well.
No way.
Still,
really?
and I don't really want to. I care more about my intimacy and the feeling. It's like dancing with people.
True.
And it's about getting people to trust you, and it's about the advice I give to, my assistants and interns and people that come and work for me. They say the biggest lesson I've learned from you is how you connect to people and how you communicate and how you know exactly what you want. And you're able to give that to them. It's like a mirror. It's like you mirror that to them, and they see you, and they're like, oh, like I could do,
Wow.
So I'm like doing this dance this whole time. I have a camera in front of me, and I'm looking at every single detail. And they're like, wow, this guy like sees everything. Like there's no hiding here.
That's very
I
interesting.
just like engulf people. I like swallow them up. It's like they're clay to me, and I'm like,
But do you mentor, Jim, do you mentor photographers?
yeah,
Because
I do.
that's, I'm not going to say that it's a hard skill to pass through.
Yeah.
It's,
I fully mentor photographers. I have mentorship programs in my company. Yeah. I have
And you take them
mentors.
through
I have
like a mindset
6-month
thing?
internships.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have
Wow.
6-month internships.
Can you take me through it quick for people to understand? Because you talk about photography from an absolutely different angle. Because usually people when talk about photography, okay, put your AF, your ISO, your MISO, you click, you run, and it becomes so boring and technical.
No.
But you talk about photography from an absolute different angle.
Yeah.
Can you take me through this 6 months, but a quick, what do you do with the people to become Jim in a way?
I get them experience. I get them doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I get them watching first because seeing you become able to do.
True.
And I'm able to just get people to critique people, and I'm able to art direct them and teach them and show them and talk to them about what they see. It's not just about how clicking a camera. It's how to see things differently. And it's how to get people to trust you.
True.
Obviously, it's camera angles and it's lens lengths and all those different things. But it's more about how to make somebody feel a certain way, to give you something.
Wow. Jim, of course you've been traveling across the globe, seeing, let's say, other photographers. Mm-hmm. What do you see that's like, it's absolutely off? You're not a photographer. You don't have what it takes.
There's so many.
Example, like.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
So I did hair and makeup for a long time. I got an agent. I started traveling around the world with Elizabeth Taylor and Sophie Loren and Whitney Houston and Jeff Bridges and Nicolas Cage. And I didn't even know who these people were when I got these jobs working with them in LA. And so I was working with Herb Ritts and Helmut Newton and Peter Lindbergh and all the biggest fashion photographers in the world, traveling to New York and Paris with Cindy Crawford and Naomi and all the 90s supermodels, working with the legend photographers. And I started bringing my little camera that Greg gave me in my backpack, and I'd bring him to work, and I'd work with Cindy Crawford on the beach or Supermodel, and I'd bring out my camera and start taking pictures. And I started collecting these photos in my closet in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was so frustrated so many days working for photographers, and I'm like, how do they make so much money and they don't even know really? I was just frustrated at how people saw things.
Oof. Jim, if I ask you a nice question, a lot of photographers, I would say, like, their dream is to work with the celebs that you worked with and working with. Working with celebs is not an easy thing. First of all, like, as an advice for the people watching us, how the photographers or coming up photographers, I would say, in their career, how they can reach the level to become photographers for celebs. That's number one. And how dealing with celebs look like. Are they arrogant, like, or like how? So people to imagine.
First of all, like, I love people. And it's not really the celebrities that are the problems to me. It's the people around them.
Correct.
It's the publicist. It's those are the people that make my life not happy on jobs with big celebrities. But I just try to know, like, these people are people and they're doing their job. But I just try to connect with the celebrity. And once I have a trust with them and they get to know, like, I really know what I'm doing and I'm making them feel amazing, they will tell their people, like, back off. Let us do our thing.
Done.
Trust. He's good. We trust him. Like, back off. Like, okay, I got this.
Yeah.
I don't need.
Wow.
So that's my ticket to working with celebrities and getting to shoot celebrities. It's about your body of work. It's about, am I creating images that those movie stars are going to want to be shot like?
About celebrities and going to work with celebrities, you've been saying, like, the photographers has to have their portfolio already set.
Yeah.
To encourage celebrities, I want to work with that photographer.
Yeah.
So it takes time. Am I correct?
Yes.
For the people watching us, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by a connection. It doesn't. Your work has to prove. To be able to work with celebs. And working with celebs is a tough one or not?
Working with celebrities, to me, we all get intimidated and we all get like, wow, that's crazy. And every job I do, I'm nervous before I go to any job. And it's not nervous because I'm afraid of the people. I'm nervous that I want to do the best job ever, that those people see that these are the best photos they've ever taken. So my expectation of myself is what causes my nerves.
Okay. I love that.
And yeah, like I said, it's the celebrities. I've had many situations how I've able to shoot celebrities by number one, being friends with them, running in circles where movie stars run, meeting them at parties or clubs and have a divine connection with someone. And I'll be like, hey, I want to take pictures. Sometimes you don't even need to show them your pictures. Sometimes it's just a friendship or a relationship. And they're like, what? You okay? And you get to them directly.
True.
Other times you got to go jump through all their hoops of all their 10 people that guard them. And that's the tough part, is having to get your work in front of their whole chain of commands to pass the test, to get to them, to get them to even show them your work. So it comes a lot of ways, you know? And if you shoot a big celebrity, then everybody wants to shoot. Like if I shoot Zendaya, and Zendaya is the biggest model actress in the world right now, then every movie star that's under is like, wow, Zendaya, trust him, we'll do it.
True.
So it's kind of like
a non-stop.
It's kind of a, you know, I don't know. It's a who's who.
Oh, exactly. True. Let's move a little bit to talent management.
Okay.
For the people watching us and want to understand the real core of talent management, what is talent management from your perspective? Why I'm asking you, because your journey is very long. These days we see a lot of people just they wake up one day, say like, because my network is good, I'm going to be a talent manager.
Yeah.
What's talent management from your perspective?
Talent management to me is, when I was a kid, I used to find models and I used to want to change their lives, and I wanted to help people see their future and help people like travel around the world and be a voice. And so I got a bunch of models signed, and I traveled, and I ended up becoming a hair and makeup artist for many years. And then I became a fashion photographer, and I was traveling, living in New York and Paris, and my photography career like happened overnight. And I started shooting covers of Vogue and GQ and Elle and campaigns for Rolls Royce and Bentley and
Mercedes,
the beer diamonds and all these different things. And I was making a lot of money, and I was buying all the fancy houses and cars, and I was friends with all these supermodels and movie stars. And I felt there was this hole inside me that I couldn't fill to make me happy. And people would see my life and go, wow, you have the coolest job. You hang out with the coolest people. You have the most beautiful. I want your job. And I'd always felt like I didn't think they were talking to me, because the way it felt, of how it looked on the outside, it didn't feel that way. And that's when my spiritual journey happened. And that's when the hole that I was trying to fill with, I want to say, with everything I was trying to fill it with, it still was, I felt empty. And I wasn't fulfilled, and I wasn't happy.
with all the fame,
With
all
everything.
the money,
With everything. I just knew there was more. There was something I was missing, and I couldn't do it with all the money and all the fame and all the cool things. And then I started questioning my life. And I ended up there.
How long was that? How many
It was
years back?
probably like 15 years ago.
Wow. Mhm.
And this is how the talent management, your questions,
Yeah.
started happening and rebuilding into me. And so I saw there was a lot of models and girls that were becoming anorexics and suicide. I knew so many people killing themselves, and everybody in Hollywood trying to climb the ladder and telling the world, listening to what the world told us we needed to have, and these beautiful girls that were just so innocent, and watching these people being taken advantage of. I ended up getting really sick, and I ended up in the hospital, and my kidneys were failing, and they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they said that I was going to have not to the end of the day to live. And long story short, maybe we could do another talk, but I had a miraculous divine intervention, healing from God in the hospital room. And the doctors were all scratching their head. It was the most crazy thing.
way.
And I ended up escaping the bullet. And I ended up coming out of the hospital, and a few weeks later I started having these dreams. And I had this dream that I was in a field up on a hill, and there was a war happening in the field, and there were soldiers running for their lives and being shot, and women and children screaming for help on the ground, and there were bombs and fire going, and there was a big white tent, a military tent in the distance, and it had a big white cross on the side of it, and the doors were rolled open, and there were these nurses, beautiful nurses, like angelic nurses, and they had like red lips and finger waved hair, and they were floating, like levitating out into the battle zone, and they were picking up these women off the floor and flying them into the tent. And as one nurse flew out, another one was flying in. It was like a conveyor belt. And they were picking up these wounded men and soldiers and children and women. And I was like, I was fascinated watching this, these heroic women, these fearless women. And they looked like angels because their dresses were blowing when they were floating out. And I was in this dream, and I heard God say to me, Source, God, a voice say to me, that's your tent. And I'm taking you back to your roots where you started. And you're going to lift women and people off the ground in the entertainment world, and you're going to build a tent. And you're going to leave your agents. You're going to just leave Hollywood, and you're going to go help people now.
Oof.
And so I did that. And I left and I woke up in the middle of the night with that dream, and I wrote everything down in my journal. The next night I went to bed, I fell right back into the same download. And there was more. That I was going to open a company called White Cross Management, that I was going to have a talent management, that I was going to hold these models' hands, not just let them go to the world anymore. And that it was a production company, and more stuff about my beauty and heroic nurses and working with refugees and camps, and that my White Cross was going to be a beacon of light and hope for people.
Jim, your story is amazing and super inspiring. And in a way that, because I always want to get a lesson out of every story to give it to our audience and our viewers. We live in an extremely distracted world, extremely distracted. We're always running like a hamster wheel. That sometimes we miss our calling. We miss listening to God.
Yeah.
Am I correct? You want people to slow down a little bit to listen to whoever your God is.
Yeah.
Just listen, because God is always sending you messages, calling. Am I correct in understanding that?
Absolutely. And the more all that happened, all that started happening, the more I started listening, and the more I started knowing that was the call of the hole in me that I was trying to fill. And so I left all my agents in London and Paris and New York, and I told them all I'd leave, and I went out and I started looking for a big piece of property. And I bought a big piece of property in Calabasas, and I built a big white tent.
No way.
Yeah, and I built a huge tent. It's basically my villa. And I was able to bring in all my in-house people, my producers, and I was able to go back and start scouting. And I opened my company, White Cross Management, for my talent management. I opened up a production company called White Cross Productions. I hired my own in-house agents, my own in-house producers, and my own in-house bookers, agents. And then I went out and I started scouting models. And that's when I started scouting all the girls and the guys, Taylor Hill. I found Gigi Hadid and worked with Gigi and her mom, Yolanda, and helped place her with agents that she's with now, IMG. And I found Jeremy Meeks, the hot felon, in prison, and worked with him a year and a half on the phone every week while he was in prison. Moved him into my house when I got out of prison, and just started putting worlds around people. Now I manage about 150 models, actors.
Wow.
And it's really fulfilling, being able to put worlds and watch them and have my team hold these people's hands so they're not in trouble, and just really elevate them and encourage them and speak life into them and remind them of who God created them to be, not who the world has told them to be. And so I wanted to raise up, in this download, God was telling me that I was going to raise up kids to be a voice for the voiceless, and that these people were going to use their fame to help people. And that was my big thing of why I wanted to move and do that.
But a question, Jim. Jim before and Jim after, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
Who's Jim after in indicators? Like, very specific, spiritual guy. Have a purpose and mission.
Yeah.
Because I believe these were not there at the beginning, correct?
Yeah, before I was trying to save my little life. And I was trying to carry all the backpack up the mountain all day, every day. And I was trying to do it myself. And I wasn't able to take it off, take off the weight in the backpack because I was looking around of how the world did it, the worldly ways of doing things.
I love that, Jim. I want to go to a little bit about the talent management.
You're amazing.
And let me try to be a little bit, I don't want to be the correct or not,
Yeah.
but there is a lot of, we live in a world these days, unfortunately, it becomes so transactional. There is nobody cares about relationships anymore,
yeah.
long term of a relationship. There's no values, there are no principles, unfortunately. It's being so downplayed.
Yeah.
In talent management, what I believe, because it's not my field, so I'm just like thinking about, you got a person, I don't want to put it in a way that you made that person famous or you put that person on the right track. But that person, in a period of time, say like, bye-bye, Jim, thank you very much. Even there is no thank you very much.
Yeah.
And they go their way
Yeah.
and even forget what you did to them.
It happens all the time.
How do you handle this? Because
It's devastating.
it's a betrayal in a way. And it's like somebody that the Jim helped you. No, Jim didn't do anything.
Yeah. No, I can't even.
It's
Do
a
you
tough one.
feel me?
I can see your eyes. It's a tough one.
It's the hardest part.
But you
The
know,
hardest part about helping people.
and they ignore it.
And when they get to a certain place, everyone's in their ear. Yeah. And I never got into any of this to make money.
True.
I didn't do anything ever in my life to make money or thinking I was going to be famous or rich, or I did nothing ever for about money with an intention of making money to do it. And I still don't. I had a heart to help people and to love people and to show people how I see them.
And they betray in that way.
Yeah.
It's,
And so that happens, and it's life.
we move
And
on.
so I started doing all this, managing talent, and about 4 years ago, I swim every morning. I swim a mile every morning,
To-
100 laps in an Olympic pool.
Yeah.
And my last 10 laps, I pray, and I talk to God. And this one day I was praying. I said, God, help me forgive all the people in my life that have hurt me. And I started naming them. And I was kind of seeing me throwing them out in the pool, in the water, and setting them up to God or
No
wherever,
way.
just setting them up, the names. And so I got home, I walked in my office, I was in my bathrobe, and my phone was ringing. My girls were sitting, my producers were sitting there. Good morning, you have a meeting, go get ready, da-da-da-da. And my phone rang, and it was this man who had stole $100,000 from me 5 years ago. Then he had been calling over the years, and I never picked up his call. And so I picked up the call, and I looked at the phone, and I put it down. I'm like, I'm not picking his call up. And I heard a voice, God's voice, say to me,
Pick up.
you were just praying to forgive people.
Oof.
And I was like, oof. And I picked up the phone. I said, hey, Matt, hey, buddy, what do you want from me now? He said, Jay, please don't hang up on me. Please, I'm so sorry. I've called you for 5 years to say I'm sorry. My whole life has changed. Please give me a minute. Don't hang up on me. I know I hurt you. He said, I need to see you. I got my wife back and my kids back. And you're the only person I don't have back in my life. I'm so rich. You have no idea what happened to me. And I'm like, where are you, in Australia? He goes, no, I'm in Las Vegas. I need to see you. I have something for you. And I'm like, what do you mean you're so rich? He goes, I created the biggest gaming guild in the world. And my partner's a man named Mark Carnegie, the richest man in Australia. And we created a gaming guild for for children in third world countries to give them access to play games to win Bitcoin. And I want to see you. And out of everybody I know ever in my life, you have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met, and you have the biggest network. And I want to teach you everything about blockchain, gaming, wellness, technology, and where the world is going. Could you come to Vegas? I'll send a plane for you. And my girls looked at me and they're like, go. So I end up going. He's out front of the hotel crying, hugs me, come upstairs. I'm going to teach you something that's going to change your life. And I went upstairs and he said, I'm giving you 400,000 tokens from my company, and they're worth $7 each. And I said, what are tokens? And he goes, that's what I want to teach you about. He goes, I'm the top 10 seller on OpenSea right now for NFTs, back in the NFT near Clubhouse days.
Yeah.
And so he sat me in Vegas for 6 days. He says, I want you to watch Ready Player One, and I want you to watch the movie to show you where the world is going, and I want you to be in front of it. And I want you to be a thought leader, and I want you to go out to your network after I teach you everything and let you know that my company will get behind any project you do, will get behind any project you want to do. And so I went out to my partners, and I went to some people I work with, like Jeff Jenkins. He created the Kardashians and Bling Empire and like 9 of the biggest shows, and did our first project with LeVar Ball and his 3 NBA sons. And I started merging these big entertainment IPs. My friend who creates American Ninja Warrior and Hell's Kitchen. And I started doing these contracts with these brands, with these IPs. I got another one called Mesha and the Bear. It's the biggest kids cartoon in the world.
True.
And we bought all the IP for all the digital platforms and started merging big entertainment into blockchain and into digital platforms and gamification. And these magazines started seeing what I was doing and interviewing me, and people, I was raising capital for people, for gaming companies, different people. I was getting advisory for biotech companies, getting equity in all these companies, and all these people started.
What made all this happen, Jim? I'm interested.
I think
the
that
prayers.
the prayers and the water, because there's frequencies of which I was told after that by a man that really changed my life. And these people, when I started connecting all these people, this one person named Tony said, I want you to meet a man named Thomas Vu. He created League of Legends, and he owns a show. He has a show on Netflix called Arcane. They just won 13 Emmys. I want you to meet him. So we planned this big dinner with all these hedge fund people, family office, and all these crypto billionaires come to this dinner. And he goes, I'm going to sit Thomas here, and when he comes, I want you to sit next to him to get to know him. So he walked in the dinner, and he looked at me, and he goes, hey, you must be Jim. He goes, you have a really beautiful heart. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, the way these people told me about you and that I should meet you, he goes, I had to look at your photos, and I could tell by the look in the people's eyes you photographed that you have a really beautiful heart. And I was like, dang, that's cool, thank you. And then he said, tell me about it. Tell me about your heart. And I was like, I got like this. And I said, I've never had anyone ask me about my heart before. I don't know how to answer. I don't know. And he goes, and so I started sharing me. I was teary-eyed, and he was all emotional. And all these people at the table were like, what's going down there? Like, what do you guys, what's happening? That's weird.
But all these happened from prayers.
Yeah, so he started asking me about who God was to me, and and I told him what was happening in the pool. And he says, I want to start swimming in that pool with you, and I want to pray with you in the pool. I want to teach you about doing meditation and breath work. So he started coming out like 3 days a week. We start swimming, praying, and then he takes me to my place to teach me how to meditate. And we start introducing me to Dr. Joe Dispenza. We start doing meditation. A few weeks later, he goes, I'm taking you to Niagara Falls to a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation for 7 days. And I'm like, 7 days of meditating? That's crazy, really? And so I end up going. And the third day, he says, Dr. Joe wants to meet you, because he's friends with Dr. Joe. And then I said, are you coming with me? He goes, no, I want you to be alone with him. And so I had a breakfast with Dr. Joe in this big room, just us. And we had like a 2.5 hour meeting. And Dr. Joe just said, Thomas has told me some really cool things about you. And I'm curious because my life's work is about how people see things, and to be able to see your future and the body of work and what you've created, obviously you've been manifesting without even knowing it. And so I'm curious about you. Tell me about your journey and your story. And I was telling him about all these things that I'd went through and happened. And he was all emotional and hugging me and feeding me and like just the sweetest man. And so I ended up going 4 more days after that, and my whole life changed there. I created a new timeline in my life. I learned about the quantum field. I learned how to see my future, not hope or want or try to get it, but I saw it. And I just started bringing it in and celebrating it, even though it wasn't physically right now, but it was there. And all of a sudden, these miracles started happening. These transformations started happening in my life. Clients were coming out of the blue. Just all the roadblocks that I'd ever had in my way of anything just were gone. And I was moving so fast through time.
If you would advise people, Jim, now, because actually it's fascinating,
Yeah.
what they should do to be able to manifest, what they should do actually.
What I learned and
Yeah.
what my mentor Thomas and Dr. Joe was teaching me was that to take the words out of my vocabulary that I was using. So that was the first thing. You know, when we're learning how to spell, teaching people how to spell and to write, I realized the word spell is we're putting spell on things. And so when we're saying hoping, I'm hoping to do that one day, that's putting a spell. And hoping, wanting, I'm wanting to be there one day, or I'm trying so hard. Those are spells that you're putting on your manifestation of what's coming. And so Thomas was teaching me, stop saying that. So I started being conscious of the words that were saying to me, not just how much I could see my future, but it was I could see it and I could put vision boards of everything that was happening. And so being conscious of the words that I was spelling out of my mouth were something I started to really be conscious
Wow.
of.
That's a very strong thing, because sometimes we, I don't want to say kill ourselves, but self-talk in
Yeah.
a very negative way,
Yeah,
that we don't deserve that.
yeah. And I started realizing there's two voices always talking to me. There's a really loud voice and there's a very soft voice. And I start to recognize the voices that I'm listening to. And so I started really paying attention to the negativity talks and the dark talk. I call it the
True.
light and the dark, or the good or the bad, or the God and the devil, or yin and yang. There's so many ways that people can look at it their way.
So the first thing you advise people is to properly, am I correct? To talk to themselves. Use the correct words. Because
Yes.
I love the statement. It's like spell.
Yeah,
It's like a spell on words.
yeah.
So the words have meaning to us. The words affects us. The
Yeah,
words,
big time.
whatever the energy around us attracts
Yeah.
what we say to ourselves.
Yeah.
What is the biggest manifestation you did that I would say happened to you?
They're happening.
And you were shocked, like, excuse my language, like, oh shit, it happened. I mean, sometimes things like this happen.
Some of
and
the
it's more
things, like, you know, there's so many things. Like, I just put a company together called Creta. They're Korean, Japanese, one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. And I merged my mentor, Thomas Fu from League of Legends, with them. And they just formed a multi-billion-dollar company called Creta USA. So that was a manifestation where my heart told me that these people need to connect, and they did, and boom.
happened.
I'm the new judge on Holland's Next Top Model. We just got them filming in Amsterdam, and with Gigi and Bella Hadid and Yolanda. And that was a beautiful thing. You know, the Mesha and the Bear project that I'm working on is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here, working with some thought leaders, and I'm creating these wellness companies and amazing technology, tech science-based companies that I'm on the forefront and creating with some of these amazing people, and just the network of people like you and people that are wanting to hear my heart. And it's like a ripple effect. Things are just moving, and I'm doing my work. I wake up every morning. I give thanks every morning. It's like being grateful and thankful. And the more thankful we are and grateful, the more blessings come in our life. And it's opposite. Like, instead of waking up and being frustrated and mad, I had a book that changed my life when I started my journey called The Artist's Way. It's about recovering and discovering your creative self. And I started journaling every morning and writing 3 full pages of journaling, brain drain, and getting the negative thoughts out on the paper. And I realized, the word says, write it on a tablet and bring it into the light. And once I started writing in my journal, sorry.
Be yourself.
I started bringing all my wants and my thoughts into the light on the paper, and all these things started changing. My life started changing so fast when I started journaling and writing. And then my end of my journal every day, I just start writing everything I'm so grateful for.
Gratitude.
And gratitude. And now my journal's changed, and now I write my future in it. And that's even evolving and taking it to a completely different level,
So powerful.
And then here in Dubai and traveling all over the world, I was just in Turkey and all these opportunities and working with the royal family now and doing just a lot of really beautiful things. And it's like a dream. I'm living in a crazy dream, and I'm not saying that to be like, look at me.
Oh, we're happy
I'm just
for
like,
you, of
this
course.
is crazy. And all the people all around the world that I'm able to just connect with, and just that their journeys are helping me learn more, and I'm just hungry.
Jim, if people are listening to your story now, and they're absolutely, I'm sure they're going to be super inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are lost. They want to hear their callings, but they can't. From your standpoint and from your journey, what can you advise them to do? Like, you were living a life that it had a hole in you. You were happy with everything, not superficially happy, but internally you felt empty.
Yeah.
And you went on this spiritual journey by something that happened to you. It's a change, a moment that came that changed everything.
Yeah.
And you took the step by your own, of course. So how can people, I don't want to say model this thing, what they need to do, like step back, go into isolation, pray, what they can do?
I think a lot of all of that is the key. I think all of the gratitude and to be thankful. My mentor told me in the very beginning of this journey a few years ago, when my life really started to change for the amazing, he kept saying to me, today's the best day ever. And I'm like, dude, it's not. Did you see what these people are doing and all this stuff? How do you say it? And he said to me, JJ, you woke up. Today's the best day ever. And I'm like, wow, really? That simple? No matter what's going on in our world, and the more we say today is the best day ever, and literally I put Post-it notes all around my house, and my mirror in my bathroom, everywhere around my house, today's the best day ever. And it was so simple. It sounds crazy. And I just started saying, today's the best day ever. And now when my team and my office and my producers and something goes down and we're like, what? Like bad? We all look at each other like, best day ever. And just things start to change.
True.
And just to journal and just to give thanks in the midst of people's storms, like we all have them. I've been through some really gnarly things besides all the great things that have happened to me. A lot of homelessness and living in a park and robbing and stealing and pillaging and being taken away and beaten and tormented, and the bad things we all deal with.
True.
And we all deal with the good and the bad and the light and the dark.
What is success to Jim these days? How does success look? You come from fashion, beauty, entertainment, which 99.999999, I leave you the 0.0001, put success as the fame, the money, everything that is monetary.
Yeah.
What is success?
Success to me is freedom, and the freedom to move around the world and to meet beautiful people in the most unexpected ways. And the success and my happiness is just tapping in like this, tapping in, tuning in and turning on and stepping into what I see I can be. And watching those happen on a daily basis is like, it's mind-blowing and it's crazy.
True.
And I'm like, this is a supernatural life. And I always knew somewhere that it could be like this. but I never knew how to get to it. I never knew. I'd look at other people and go, they got it together. But I never knew how to embody it for me and how it would work. Because your journey is very different than how I got to my success. How he and they all get. And that's why it's important that we don't look around. And I'd always look around. And the world tells us to look around to see how everyone else is doing it. It's good to have mentors, and it's good to look around. But know that our fingerprints are different, and we all have a call in our life, that God has a perfect plan in our life. And I know all the great leaders in Jesus and all the great teachers and the scholars, they all had supernatural lives.
I love that, Jim.
And like Jesus was a man that was tapped in, tuned in, and turned on. And he knew the secrets of how to tap into God, to the Father, Muhammad, and all the leaders, teachers. And there's a lot more that's going to unfold. I think we're all going to start seeing a lot of changes happen in the world, collectively in the world. And these kind of thought leaders and people that are rising up with these type of ways of manifestation and answered prayers and tapping in are going to be more talked about.
True. Jim, if I ask you, within all this career and journey, what is your favorite failure to date? A failure that you're grateful
My
that it
favorite
happened.
failure. Oh, I spent a lot of years in my life having unforgiveness and about all the hardships that I had gone through and blaming everybody. And that was the failures that I regret, that I didn't realize that it was all part of the big picture. And so I lost a lot of years in my life being mad and being mad at people that have done me wrong. And if I had any failures, that was the failures, was the unforgiveness. And knowing, even with my parents, even the things that I thought they did to me that was wrong. And when I got older and when I lost them, I was like, this was all part of the plan, and I wouldn't be me, and I wouldn't be this guy, and I wouldn't have had any of that if I wasn't pushed like that.
True.
And those failures didn't happen to me. Like, this is what pushed me to
The next
to be
levels.
here
True.
today with you,
My pleasure.
and to be able to share with a lot of people my heart, and to encourage people, and to have a beautiful gift that God gave me, and I'm so thankful.
We're thankful
to
that
be-
you're with us today.
Thank you. And just to feel alive and not be afraid to share my heart and share my vulnerability and share like really how grateful life is. And
It's
it
a
goes by
pleasure.
so fast.
True. I want to flip the question. What is your proudest moment to date? Proudest.
My proudest moment. Just being able to be a light for people.
Yeah.
Just to be a hand, a loving hand, without wanting to have it, without wanting something back.
True. Without wanting something back.
Yeah.
I love that, Jim. You know, I have a part in the Alpha Talks that I usually don't use. Very seldom that I use. And I use this part is when I feel I want to hear from you something. Which is, I usually ask, not usually, again, very seldom, that I flip the table. Which means I want you to ask me any question that comes to your head. Any question. Very seldom that I use, but I want you to ask me a question.
What is the key, or what have you done, the best quality that you have that has transformed your life and had all the success and transformation that you've had, the different careers and the different, and where you sit in your life today? What is the one thing?
I believe that it's caring about my loved ones and my family, because they're always my why that pushes me to keep going. It's not always the monetary thing. It's always my mother, my family, my partner that pushes me to go forward. And I slash this with my discipline that I never stop.
I love that.
Thank you for that question. I love
caring.
it. Of course. That's the main thing. That's the thing that I wake up every day, think about. As you said, like we usually don't wake up in the morning just we want to run.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the only thing that drives me. That's my fuel.
I love that. It's
That's my fuel.
beautiful.
Thank you, Jim,
I'd
for the
always
question.
say to myself, like when I'm feeling down and sad, like I used to tell people they'd have the worst life. I could go make cookies and go to an old folks home and give them cookies. Go get your eyes off yourself. And that is like what you just said. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Jim. In the Alpha Talks, the show, I always ask a question. How do you define an alpha? What does alpha means for you? And again, it is not a male, female, nothing. It just, what's an alpha for you?
An alpha. Something strong. That's what I feel to me. Alpha feels something strong that's coming out through the fire. And that is what I see.
You know, Jim, I love the definition, but at the same time, I see an alpha person in front of me. But at the same time, I see somebody, he's have no problem sharing his emotions. And it's so respectful and so strong at the same time. Like I'm an alpha. I'm a leader. I dominate my field. I
That's
achieve my goals. But at the same time, I'm human. I have my emotions.
Yeah.
And I don't, excuse my language, I don't give a damn showing it to people.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Thank you.
So much.
Appreciate it. There's been a lot of times in my life where the fire was so bright in front of me that I was so afraid to go through it. And that was the key of what changed my life. And the voices, you can't do it, you're terrible, you can never, you're going to lose everything. Don't even try to go through that fire. You're going to burn to death and everything will be over. And I realized when I stopped listening to the voices and looking at the fire and how hot it would be and how it would burn me, that I was afraid and paralyzed to make the next step in my life. I ran through the fire and I knew there was a loving God there with his arms open catching me. And everything I'd ever done in my life was I had to run through that fear and get over the voices and trust and run that I know if I got through the fire,
True.
that the miracles were on the other side. And it was just like getting myself to get through, to run and to be brave.
I love that.
That's was the key to my success and the key to everything that's happened in my life.
Jim, if somebody wants to connect with you, with your work,
Yeah.
what is the easiest way that they can connect with you?
They could find me on Instagram.
I'll put it in the description.
Jim Jordan Photography. And my management company, if they want to be models or talent or acting, that Instagram is at White Cross Management.
I'll put all these details in the description, and I'm
And-
sure a lot of people would love to connect with you,
Yeah.
with your work.
And if it's stuff with blockchain or entertainment, I have another company as well called White Cross Worldwide.
I'll put it as well in the
Thank you.
description.
Appreciate it.
All the best, Jim.
Thank you.
What is the last message you want to leave the audience with today?
Oh man. Stay encouraged. Know you're loved. And if it's not the love that's around you in your immediate circle, know that God loves you. And I know that's cheeky to say that, but there's a loving God and it's so powerful.
A lot of people, Jim, I love this message because a lot of people, they feel not loved. They have this, I'm not loved. But you said something very interesting and very heartfelt. You have a loving God.
Yeah.
If everybody around you doesn't love you, you have a loving God.
Yes.
Jim, I loved
And
the
no,
conversation.
and I love you, whoever
you.
you are. I love you, bro. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. We have one thing left.
Yeah.
we have in the talk called a section called the Alpha Talks Memoir, where the alpha guest has to write his experience about the show, but that's we do it after the recording, and also write a question to the next alpha guest. It's a way of making the alpha guests connect. Nobody knows who's writing the question or not, but that means that you will answer a question from the previous alpha guest. Are you ready?
Okay, sure. That's cool.
So Jim, here's the question from the previous alpha guest. Did you thank God today?
I thank God so many times today. I thanked him when I got out of the taxi. I thanked him when I came in the elevator. I know in my world and what I believe that God stands at the door, every area of our life, every meeting, every opportunity, and he stands there.
I told you that's a question for you.
And God stands at the door and he won't come in. So if you say, come with me, come in every area of my life, I do that every day. And before I come in a meeting, I come in a podcast, I say, God, come with me. Use me as a bright light to light this place. Use me as a light to touch people. And every day I do that, my life changes. And I know God's got me. My angels go before me, clear the path, open the windows and doors of heaven over my life.
So inspiring, Jim.
That's what I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's
You're
been
amazing.
An amazing conversation.
Thank you.
And I have to say one thing before I close. When I was prepping for the show, you know, you have a career as a celebrity photographer, a director, production, movies, acting.
You're funny.
I said like, oh my God, let me prepare. You know, like
You're the best.
I've met the most, I would say, authentic person, a real human, where in a world that I don't believe there are a lot of humans left. So I really appreciate the connections that we got, and it was a pleasure to meet you and get inspired by you, sharing the values and the knowledge and the wisdom you had through your journey with the audience. So absolutely unexpected. You turned things upside down, and I'm really grateful for this to happen. So I appreciate it so much, Jim, and thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
That wraps another inspiring episode of today's show. I hope that this episode has ignited your inner alpha and left you feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Remember, alphas aren't born, they're made. It isn't about dominating others, it's about embracing your authenticity, leading with integrity, and making a positive impact on the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Alpha Talks on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your fellow alphas. Also connect with us on social media at Seif El Hakim. Share your thoughts, insight, and stories of personal and business growth with us. Let's create a movement of alphas supporting one another. The world needs more alphas like you exactly. Until next time, stay bold, stay driven, and stay alpha.